This next slide, I'm giving you the specific URL for the presentation that I'm doing right now. So an hour and 15 minutes from now, if you have any questions about this and you want to get a head start on anything that you're learning from today's presentation, I highly recommend that you grab this shortened URL. I have an arrow pointed to CUSD because you must have capital letters for those four in order for it to work. If you use all lowercase letters for the entire thing, you're going to be directed to a Spanish language survey, and that's not what you're looking for. I have a feeling you would prefer this presentation. So you can either write it down or grab your cell phone and take a picture of this screen as a reminder, and then later today, tomorrow, anytime this week, you have access to this. You don't have to wait for the video to be posted on that website. On these next two slides, Delane and I are giving you access to our contact information, and we're introducing ourselves to you. So I've already said my name is Melissa Culver. My job title here in Clovis Unified is that of Instructional Technology Coach. I serve the 5 elementary schools that feed into Clovis North. My email address is on the screen right there, and then my website is also available there. I will reference my YouTube channel later today, and you can either go to YouTube and search my name, or you can also find a link inside of my website in order to access those student videos that I'm going to reference later. And Delane, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Well, hello, friends. So I'm Delane Johnson. I teach AP Computer Science Principles at Clovis East, and I'm an instructional technology coach for the Clovis East area. So between Melissa and I, you have a really strong powerhouse team. So thanks for joining us. You're welcome. So Melissa and I will do our best to tag team, and we have 2 wonderful moderators as well to support you. So yes, if you put your ID number, you're welcome to add your name on the back side of that ID number if that makes you more comfortable, or if you just want the ID number. I know there's been lots of questions. So let's talk about how to help your students be successful when we are in this online learning. Who should be attending this session? So are you a GIS, a site administrator, combo support intervention teacher, a teacher? You are all welcome, and every one of these slides will be beneficial in your role. For many of us, we discovered that parents have just as many questions as our kids did, right? So how do we help support our students, and how do we help support our students' families, parents, and guardians? So here's some things that we can do to help everyone be successful. What we're going to be covering are CUSD approved websites and links for students and for staff. Melissa has an enormous resource, her YouTube channel, with support videos, with step-by-step instructions and guides. I highly, highly recommend that you find Melissa's YouTube channel. If you go straight to YouTube, type in Melissa Culver. She is typically the first Melissa Culver to pop up. And I think I last looked, she had over 140 videos, Melissa. So yeah, it's an incredible resource for you. So she will feature some of those support videos for you in this session, and then we'll be going over some Q&A. But don't be shy, ask questions in the chat, and we will review those and try to answer them as soon as we can. Okay, so we're going to be talking about PDFs and videos and distance learning, and how do we support our students when we can't be right at their side, what we call elbow coaching. So we know that students transfer sites. We know that we have kiddos that show up on the 3rd week for these examples. So how do we help parents and students and guardians when we need our Zoom minutes for instructional time? So how do we set them up for success? So here are some of the ways that you can do that. You can post links to your teacher website. You have a grade level website, right? We have a lot of ways that we can communicate with our students outside of a Zoom meeting. We are going to be recommending a lot of pre-approved resources like Google Classroom, like Seesaw and Clever. You can use Mass Email and Parent Connect as well to get that communication out. So highly recommend that you stay within the CUSD, I call it an ecosystem, in order to communicate and share out these resources. All right, let's take a look. I was ahead of myself. There is a website that is set up for us, ready to go. And if you have a syllabus that you're working on, if you have a Google Classroom or a Seesaw class, this link should be one of the first things that you post for them. So CUSD.com/technology help for students. This is available on our CUSD website. And it is some of the most common reoccurring struggles or issues that students and parents have when doing online learning. So you can see that they are categorized and organized by password reset, Clever, pop-up blockers. And so we're going to go over a few of those items that are available on this web page. If you forget the link, you can always do a search for technology help for students. Just know that that won't be the first search result. You might have to scroll a little bit to get to this single page called technology help for students. I wish it was the first link. We need to make it more popular. So the biggest deal, we are coming back to school in under 2 weeks. I don't even want to think about that. So password resets. I remember the first day of school, and I am a first period teacher. Do you know what I did the first day of school for first period? All reset passwords. Students don't typically remember them over the summer. So how do we help them? There's a couple of ways that we can do this. Click here for student password reset on this web page. This is for parents. Parents do have to have a cell phone number in the system. A home phone number won't work. It has to be a cell phone number. So they may have to go into Parent Connect to update their contact info. So just a heads up about needing that cell phone number so they can reset it. So step-by-step instructions, number one. On the next screen, you'll see how we as teachers and administrators can help reset passwords. So they're good for 365 days. So if a student on August 18th of last year had their password reset, they're going to have to reset it again. So everybody is going to need a new password starting from roughly day 5, day 6. What do we do as teachers? You'll want to use a district issued device to get to this website. If I'm using a personal device, I am unable to access portal.cusd.com. So I'll say that again, use a district issued device. It'll be a far less headache for you to be able to do that. The other helpful item is to be on district Wi-Fi when going to portal.cusd.com. So this is affectionately known as SAM. I don't know if you've heard that before, but you can sign in with your teacher credentials the same way that you sign into your laptop and take a look at your students and help reset their passwords. So we have some screenshots for you of what SAM looks like. So I would sign in with my first name, last name, and I would use my password. And then I click sign in. You are given 2 different tabs for easy search. The first tab is ID number. And so if you know the student's ID number, you can jump directly to their login. My favorite button, though, is show all my students. So there's that green button at the bottom of search. Show all my students has been fantastic. But as a friendly tech support person, I often help other people do research to help reset their passwords. So this is where you can look for student first name, last name, pick their school site, because often we have students with the same names, and the teacher last name. And that's where that blue search button is different than the show all my students. So let me show you what show all my students looks like. This is a list of just my seniors for right now, and I could download a class roster of all of their information. So up in the upper right-hand corner, after you've signed into SAM and said, show all my students, there's this little Excel button, and it's really helpful for you to get those student ID numbers, to get their Google ID, which is their sign-in. And so we've blurred out that information. What I want to point out, do you see this password expires? That is available when you sign in. So one of my students, the third one down on the list, see how it says January 6th there, but August 18th for another one. This student, upon returning from school, is going to need help on the second day of school because his password will have expired. So using that Excel and getting a list of their student ID numbers, very, very helpful. The next thing that you can do inside of SAM when you're looking at your student accounts is to just reset the password. Particularly if you work with our younger students, our littles, I would take the time to go through and reset everyone's password before school even started. So as soon as I have my class list, I'm signing in and I'm clicking reset password. Because I work with high school students, I will let them know when to tell me, could you please reset it? I don't know what my password is. And so I'll be waiting for either emails from the school or because they will have to call. But that reset password is available for you, and it's a really quick process. It takes about 3 seconds. There is a protocol for the password, and I forgot to include that in the slide. So once you click reset password, the student's password becomes first initial that's capitalized, last initial that is not capitalized, and their student ID number. So mine, for example, would be capital D, lowercase j, 1500123456. And so that becomes their default password right now. So quick reset password. The other thing that you can do is take a look at the details. And a lot of times I get students that say, well, I'm locked out. I can't even, I know my password's right, but I've been locked out. So I will sign into SAM, look at my class, and then click on details, and it will provide you with the information that you need to find out if the student has definitely been locked out from too many password attempts. I just saw that, thank you. Yeah, so there was a question about what the default password is. So the default password is capitalized first initial, lowercase last initial, and their student ID number. So for me, I would be capital D, lowercase j, 1500123456. Some of your students might have a 0702, but so they'll need to know their student ID number, and that's why downloading the roster in SAM into Excel will help you give them their student ID number. So capital first initial, lowercase last initial, student ID number, no spaces. Okay, when you click on details, you can also see that student ID number as well. It will tell you their Google ID. So if they're unsure of what their Google account is to log in, this is available inside of SAM. And then it will tell you if the account has been locked out or if the account has been disabled. If you need to reset it, you can ask it to reset password on the same screen. You can refresh the student status. So these are really helpful features, especially right now at the beginning of the school year, to change those passwords for your students. So definitely look forward to devoting some time to helping them get logged on. How are we doing so far? Perfect.
Can we get a thumbs up if our pacing is good? Thumb down if we need to adjust our speed at all. All right, for those of you with cameras, I saw thumbs up. Delane, looks like we're doing well.
Thank you. And I appreciate our friends in the chat that are repeating the password login. Thank you. Okay, let's take a look at another resource that you can use that's all online. So again, I don't know what my student ID. Hey, parents and guardians, from the Technology Help for Students website, there are 4 different blocks to help them identify what the student ID number is. So if they have access to Parent Connect, they can easily go in and look at their child's demographics. Just know that they have to click on these little arrows to get these blocks to open up. Sometimes parents will say, I went to the page, I don't see anything for the help. So we might have to remind them to click that tiny little caret or the chevron over there on the side to open up to see the images. But their student ID number is available for parents in Parent Connect. So there's a question really quick. When you refresh account status, is that how you unlock kids? The only way to, you can try refreshing and then see if it says that it's no longer unlocked. For me, I've had to reset their password every time. Melissa, have you had a different experience about the account status?
Great question. So back on this screen, if the child is locked out, it's going to say yes. And then one of the buttons over here is actually going to become an unlock button. And you would click the button. It takes approximately 1 minute to fully unlock the child's account.
Perfect. And yes, if they are locked out, they will probably have to reach out via parent email to you directly, or they will need to call the school, especially in this online learning setting. So yes, that is another great question. What happens if it is day one and our students are locked out? So they'll need to contact the school, or hopefully parents and guardians have your email address and they can reach out to you directly. For students that have two last names, I have not encountered where both initials are needed. It is typically the first initial that is listed inside of Q. So if they have 2 or 3 last names, that very first last name is the first initial that you're going to be taking.
And there are situations where a child's name has too many characters in it. And then for that child's username, we will actually remove some of the letters from the first name. So if you have a child reach out and they say that they can't get in, that something's wrong, use your investigative strategies to read through that student ID login information for the Google ID right here, just to make sure that if they're supposed to remove some letters, that they have indeed removed those characters.
Yes, we have character limits, and for some of you, you may have seen that the students' names are really truncated to the point where it doesn't sometimes make sense. And kids are flexible, and they definitely learn what their unique combination is for their Google account. But Sam has been a saver for me to help understand what their sign-in is supposed to be and what their student ID number is.
And most students end with a 001. Like if it's Mickey Mouse, the login would be Mickey Mouse 001. But if we have more than one Mickey Mouse, then another child becomes 002. And then if there's another one, the child could be 003 and so on.
Yes, that's a great point, that those 3-digit letters on their Google ID. And unfortunately, we can't show you because these are live students. So we did need to block that out. But Google ID is typically first name, last name, and 3 numbers, 00 something. Perfect. Thank you, Melissa.
You are welcome.
So we talked about reminding parents to click on that caret to open up additional information, but this will show them where to find their students' ID number, where to get the login information, what's my CSD email address and Google account. So this Technology Help for Students page has been a wonderful resource for parents and students. Okay. There is a whole bunch of other items on this page that we should go over, such as how to sign into Clever. On a district-issued device, Clever is available as an add-on. It's a little extension in the upper right-hand corner of the browser. But if students are on a home device, they can always go to clever.cusd.com. And that will take them directly to the website to get signed in. So they will need to know their Google account ID to sign into Clever, but you can send parents to this website, and there's that direct link that's highlighted how to sign into Clever, and it will walk them through the step-by-step. It also outline some of the issues that parents have if they're using an iPad. Sometimes we struggle to sign into Ready from an iPad with Clever. And so Melissa has a lot of useful resources on that process. So I know your brain is probably running through some questions about, okay, I have new students. How am I going to get them with all of the device? The Clever address again, if someone is not using a school issued device, is clever.cusd.com. And they can always go to the cusd.com website and do a search for Clever as well, just in case they get completely stuck. So that's going to be our home base, is cusd.com. Okay. There are frequently asked questions. Again, just remind parents and guardians to click on the little caret or that chevron to open up troubleshooting tips. A lot of it has to do with the browser. If Chrome hasn't been updated, sometimes Clever just gets a little stuck and it freezes. So maybe have students try Internet Explorer or have them try Firefox. Clever definitely likes Chrome. For the most part, our CUSD resources are very, very Chrome friendly. So when a student is on an iPad using Safari, have them install Chrome and see if it's a much better experience for them. They don't have to be on Chrome though, so thank you for that question. No, they can definitely use other browsers, but we found that Chrome is the one that is the most stable and the most easily fixed when we have issues. But lots of resources on that Technology Help for Students page to help parents kind of walk through why can't I sign into Clever. Okay, some really cool features for you inside of Clever popped up for us earlier this year, and that is the analytics page. If you've had a chance to see this, there's some really great information coming from the analytics page. My teacher geek comes out for this. I like to post my resources for my class in Clever. I encourage my high school students to use Clever every day. This is where you start. That way, I get a chance to see when they've signed in, how long they've used it, and if I need to maybe make a phone call and provide some support. So encourage your kids to use Clever every day. You can see here on the, I guess on the breakdown that because I took this screenshot a couple of days ago, there's clearly not going to be any student activity. But if we were to have taken a look at this in March and April, I knew exactly who I needed to call, who I needed to reach out to for my students to via remind or call home to say, is everything okay? So it was just another way for me to help keep in constant communication with my students. If I saw that they had not been active in the last 3 to 7 days and it was a Wednesday, then I definitely needed to make sure that everyone was home safe and that we didn't have an illness or an issue with the internet. So analytics is 2 thumbs up for me. It was one of the best features that I had when we were using distance learning. So how do you use Clever over Google Classroom was the question. I actually use them both. So I asked them to use Clever to get to Classroom. And so that is the process just to get them comfortable with understanding that home base is Clever. Now, everything is posted in Classroom with the exception of Zoom meetings. I keep my Zoom meeting links inside of Clever because of that extra safety feature. And by asking them to use Clever, I can use this analytics page. So Classroom is my home base. Love, love, love Google Classroom. Just ask them to connect to Google through Clever instead of going directly to Classroom. Use that Google Drive icon on the home page of Clever and then get into Classroom from there. So does that help answer your questions about how I use it? Is there a Clever app for phones? Oh, Melissa, I think you'll be sharing how people can get there.
Yes, it is available on Apple devices. I have not used it on Android devices yet. Students can use it on an iPad or a cell phone. in my opinion, if a child is using education-related resources on a cell phone, you're just working with a microscopic screen. And it's a little bit hard to maneuver. Their eyes might be pinching in. Their finger might be initiating more than one button at one time. But absolutely, on an iPad, you have access to Clever. And most of the resources work swimmingly on those digital devices. If any of the apps in Clever do not function, the icon on the screen will let you know. So most of them work. The answer is yes.
And big questions coming through. Wait, how do you post your Zoom meeting links in Clever? So good news, I am building out a series of videos to show you how to use Clever to safely protect your Zoom meeting links. I can walk you verbally through the process really quick, which is I like to create a personal page in Clever. So from homeroom, you can differentiate between your classes. If you are a high school teacher, if you are an elementary school teacher, you just need one homeroom. And in that page, I can provide a link to Zoom. So I grab my Zoom meeting links by period. Each class period has its own personal page, so the kids don't cross over. So to quote Ghostbusters, we don't cross the streams. That way second period is not looking at first period's Zoom meeting. So for elementary teachers, this is a much easier process to get your Zoom links into Clever. But be on the lookout for those videos. Those should be coming your way next week. Or you can email me if you'd like, and I'll give you the step-by-step instructions.
So inside Clever, you have access to what's classified as a teacher page, and you can name it whatever you want. And then once you head into that teacher page, then any of those resources that you want specific for your students can be here. If you're a kindergarten teacher and you want your students to do sight word bingo, and that's available as a website, you can actually drop nearly any website that you want in here specific to your students so that you can assist them in this one space. And then you can drop that URL that's specific to your Zoom meetings in here as well, and you can call it whatever you want. And then when your students access that Clever teacher page, they can click here. I don't have the video in this presentation on how to adjust your Clever teacher page, but when this presentation is finished, I'll go back into our slide deck and add that video that's already done.
Yeah, it's amazing. So while she's on this screen, on the left-hand side,
You want to bring it back?
yeah, really quick, since I know this is a big question, like, hey, this is exciting. On the left-hand side, do you see students? And then there's a button that says Edit Student Sharing. So for our high school friends, when you click on Edit Student Sharing, that's how I limit which period gets access to this personal page. So if I taught 5 periods, I would make 5 personal pages and limit that Edit Student Sharing to just 1 class per page. So that's how I keep them from popping into the wrong Zoom meeting link. And first year teacher, hi friends. So how do you get into Clever? So Melissa, would you mind showing what that homepage looks like and how people can get there?
Sure thing. Over here on the right-hand side, there's a letter C, and this is called a Chrome extension. On any of our CUSD provided devices, Clovis Unified has already dropped that into Google Chrome for us. Teachers don't have to do that. If families are using Clever on their own personal devices, they may not have this cute little resource available to them. So to head to Clever, the students are just going to go to Clever. I have a video that's going to teach you how to do this, so you can share it either on your website or in a welcome parent newsletter. If you want to use Zangle to send out a mass email to all of your families with a welcome introduction PDF, you can drop specific web links into that letter, and as long as you're sending that PDF, they can click on all of those links and then access the videos that are here in this presentation seamlessly. Because again, hello, this is a distance learning model. Geographically, you're separated from your students. You can't just stand up, walk around, and then help them. They're going to have to navigate this on their own with parent support. So clever.cusd.com is the resource that you're going to use in order to go in. And it might not take me to those introductory screens because I just clicked on them a second ago. I'd have to sign out in order for it to show up. You're going to see another screen that pops up where the students are supposed to click in order to move into this space. And then Clever is a one-stop shop where there are a host of resources, not only for you, the teacher, but also for the student as well. One reason why we switched to this resource is that it is cumbersome, overwhelming, and complicated for small children to memorize all these usernames and passwords. The beauty of this is that when the students click on some, not all, on some of these resources, their password and their user information is already stored in that link because they've authenticated themselves by getting into Clever in the first place. It is the gateway that allows them into all these other resources.
Perfect, thank you. So really quick, down at the bottom, there is kind of a teal green plus add button. So one of the questions that popped up was, wait, how do you make multiple pages? So look for the plus add at the bottom of Clever, and when you click that button, that's how you make a bunch of personal pages that will show up at the top.
You can also favorite things. If you click on the little heart right here, a Xerox copy of that resource will appear at the top just for organizational purposes. That way you don't have to go all the way to the bottom in order to find those. And students have that hidden heart as well in order to favorite any of their resources.
I usually ask them to favorite Google. That way it makes it easier for them to get into Classroom, to get into Drive, and all of the fun learning that we're doing. So yes, I love that heart feature, the favorite.
Later in this presentation, I'm going to draw your attention to the little question mark right here. Because your students are not going to be on the network, some of the resources that usually just get them in seamlessly will need an extra layer of security. So if you ask them to go into Adobe Spark, or you ask them to go into Britannica School, they might need a password. And you might be used to the classroom never needing a password on some of these. If the students reach out and say, hey, I tried it, I clicked it, I can't get in, evaluate if there's a little question mark right there. There might be another layer of security that they need to employ while at home.
So Clever is a pretty amazing resource. And if it's your first time really taking a look at it, I'm so happy you're here. It's very, very powerful. And I highly encourage you show your kids what they can do with Clever. So in honor of time, I'll be happy to answer any questions in chat about Clever. I do want you to be able to see some really amazing resources. So if students are new to Google Apps, or they're just unsure that they have Gmail, a lot of our students aren't aware that they have access to email, and that's how we might be communicating with them. There's a PDF in that Technology Help for Students page on the CUSD website that explains how to get into Gmail and how to email your teachers. Just know that student Gmail accounts are locked. They may only email their teacher, so they cannot communicate with people on the outside. Can they email each other? Yes. But we won't have to worry about vendors trying to send them emails. It is for school communication only. Okay, one thing that might be helpful for you and for your students is how to take a screenshot. So we've talked about resources in Clever. We've talked about how to get to Gmail and how to get to Google Apps and what's my student ID number. One of the things that could be very useful for you is screenshots. So depending on the type of device that you have, I outlined devices with physical keyboards. If you have an iPad, it's a different process. If you have an iPhone or an Android phone, right? But Windows, Shift S, all three need to be clicked, not at the same time, but you can push Window, then Shift, then S, and that will allow you to take a screen clipping. You can then paste it into a slide deck, paste it into a Google Doc, or paste it into an email, right? If you're on a Mac, Command-Shift-3 takes the whole screen, Command-Shift-4 takes part of the screen. And if you're on a Chromebook, Control and window switcher is the whole screen. Control shift window switcher is partial screen. So you get to pick what the screenshot looks like. So just one of those ways that it might be worth the time to train your students how to take a screenshot. Powerful way to let them demonstrate their learning that might have been outside of Google Apps, but you need them to write about what they've learned. Let's say that you have them on Delta Math and you want them to talk about a problem. So they could take a screenshot of those results. And pop-up blockers, another big issue. A lot of times I would get an email that says, my student can't get into Benchmark. They can't see the book. What's going on? It was a pop-up blocker. So in the web address at the very top of your browser in the upper right-hand corner, you might see this icon, pop-up blocked, or just a tiny little screen with a red X. So you'll have to walk students through how to manage pop-ups. And if you click on that icon, click on always allow if it's an educational resource, right? Chrome will then manage those pop-ups. They'll be able to see Benchmark and be able to see those books. So other websites often have pop-up blockers, and just heads up, take a look in that upper right-hand corner for those two icons.
Benchmark assessments are definitely going to do that. So for any of you who are teaching benchmark, if your students say, I cannot take the test, ask them to look for this in order to remedy any hiccups that they have there. All right, we are switching presenters. I'll go ahead and run with this the rest of the way. Delane, interject if I miss anything. Feel free that you can bring your voice into the discussion. So the previous website that we highlighted was Help for Students. This next website is specifically Help for Staff. So the web address is the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. You can take a picture of it if you want to. Otherwise, that URL that I provided for you at the beginning of the presentation where you have my entire slide deck, I'm going to bring that web address up again at the end. So tech.cusd.com/staff references. Every item that you see on the screen here, when you click on that theme, it's going to scoot you down the page, and then it's going to specifically take you to the resources that are going to answer your question under that specific theme. So let's pretend that I clicked on CUSD email or Chromebooks or Clever. When you click on one of those thematic items, it'll move you down the screen and it will look like this. Most of the items on the screen are all PDFs. On the right-hand side, it says .pdf. Only one time does it say .x, so that would be a document instead of a PDF. You have access to every one of those resources, not only for your own knowledge, but if these PDFs are ever helpful for your students, then you can email those to your students. You can put them on your website, or you can add them to Google Classroom. You can email them to a parent as well. So we're definitely not going to read through all of those or show you all of those PDFs, but we're letting you know where you can find the answers to those questions. So for example, as students are trying to get into Google Classroom, you can either email a PDF out to the students or the parents, or you can send them a video, whatever is most helpful for you. Just download those resources and share them in a way that's helpful. On the next two slides, I'm going to showcase just a few samples of some PDFs that you might want to share with your families. And then I have 16 videos that I'm going to overview very quickly, and then I'm going to try to leave 5 minutes at the end for Q&A. So Benchmark on an iPad. If you would like to download and share the QR codes, so right here, there's a tutorial that will walk you through the process of printing QR codes for Clever Access. On an iPad, your little bits can bloop, just use that QR code in order to get in. Now, I will let you know that the QR code or the Clever badge will not let students get into Google products. There's a whole nother layer of security, and those QR codes will not let them into Google products. But for your K1s and 2s, if you need them to get into Clever easily, that badge is a really seamless resource. Clever login protocol for home. Right back here, it shows the username sample like we were mentioning earlier. and gives parents and students a brief overview of what it looks like to log in at home. Now, what if there are multiple children in the same family, 4, 5, 6 children, and they're all using personal devices, and Clever is not switching between the children, and the children keep logging into somebody else's Clever? Well, in order to answer those questions, I have a video that I'm going to highlight later. I won't show it to you, but I'll show you how to get there. And then there's also this document that you can share with parents so that they can figure out how each child can get into Clever without any hiccups. The Clever Badge tutorial, like I was mentioning, that's also a resource that you can find on that teacher support page that I highlighted just a minute ago. There's actually, I think there might be 2 different PDFs. I think one specifically teaches teachers how to access that material. And then there's also a tutorial for families. So if families are trying to log in using the Clever Badge, then they can. If you have been requested by your administrator to share your Google Classroom with them, or if you have a student teacher this year, or if you have combo support, or if you're collaborating with your other 5th grade teachers and all of you want to share Google Classrooms, then there's also a tutorial that's going to explain the process of how you would share your classroom with someone else, and giving them access to be a co-teacher in that teaching space. If students don't know how to access the district email, there's a tutorial that you can download, and then you can share it with them so that they can have access to that. Welcome to Google Classroom. If you have students who have never been in, they need a refresher, they need a tutorial, PDF is an option. And then back here we have iReady on an iPad. If families have access to an iPad and they need to use them, then that will help you facilitate that learning process. All right, so here are approximately 16 videos. In order to access each of these videos, one quick way is to just do a Google search for Melissa Culver YouTube, and then you'll have access to my YouTube channel. There might be 53 Melissa Culvers in the world, but mine shows up first because I post a lot of material. Or you can go to YouTube and then search for Melissa Culver. That's another option. Lastly, there's a quick link on my website as well. I'm not going to show you all of my videos. I've just hand-picked a few that I thought were top priorities. For example, how do you reset a student password? You can send out the PDF, or you can send out this web link. So for each of these videos, I have the web link specifically on the screen, but if you'd rather just go straight to my YouTube channel, then that's an option as well. Sometimes I find that it's difficult, like it's a capital letter, no, it's a lowercase, oh, it's a number, it's not a number. And then, by the 4th time you've typed it in, you finally have the right web address. But resetting student passwords, the entire tutorial is right there. How do you log into Clever at home? Complete tutorial start to finish. On your website, if you want one tab devoted to 9 teaching videos for families, that is absolutely an option. You can just drop all these videos in here, and then when you send an email to your parents, hi, welcome, I'm so glad that you're here. Or for those of you in high school emailing directly to your students, you can let them know on the distance learning tab in my website, I have a series of videos available to you that can help you navigate the first week of school. You can drop those in there, and then your students can find that material easily. I mentioned earlier, in a home where there's more than one child and they're all trying to access Clever, Clever will remember the last child that came in. So how do you clear that information out so child number 2 can get in and child number 3 can get in? Someone is going to have that question. Drop this into your website, tuck it into your intro letter, email it out to your students, share it in a way that's easiest for you, and then this will walk them through step by step how to fix that problem.
So Melissa, we had a really quick question about iReady and iPads. And so they want to know, do students have all of the things in iReady that they would have on a Chromebook or on a Windows device that they would inside of an iPad?
Excellent question. In order to access iReady on an iPad, you need 2 apps in order to make that successful. Not only are you using the Clever app, but you're also using the iReady app. Clever is going to authenticate the child. It's kind of like the key to get through the door. And then it's the launch pad that's going to direct the child over to the iReady app. You cannot go directly through iReady. You have to go through Clever in order to get there. And based on everything that I've seen, user functionality is the same. All the things that iReady is asking you to do on the website is the same that you're going to find in the iReady app. Any other quick questions before I start going again?
No, I'm answering them in chat, so thank you.
Okay, yeah, excellent. Oh, I didn't talk about that one. I came to it, but I didn't say anything. So let's say that you have 3rd graders and they don't remember how to get into Google Classroom. You're not going to spend 45 minutes on a Zoom walking them through step-by-step how to get in there. The best thing, in my opinion, is just send this video to them, and it's going to escort them through step-by-step. Every single step they need. It's gonna, mom and dad can help them if needed, but for any student who needs to get into Google Classroom, these are the steps that they would use in order to get in. And my tone and my speed are directed towards students in that video, so it's directed towards students specifically. If your students do not have access to the library on your campus, it's not open, we're concerned about a virus, it's going to be closed, but you want your students to read, the Fresno County Library offers ebooks. They are not going to have 700,000 titles that are ebooks, but they are going to have some. It's free. All parents need is a cell phone number to verify that they're attached to some type of communication where the library can say, hey, your resources are overdue, please return them. And then the Fresno County Library is available to your students, and they can, the entire process of setting up that account and using that resource is available inside of this training video. I also have a video for Epic. I don't have the URL on this page, I'm so sorry. But for those of you who are using Epic and you want to share thousands of books with your students, so that's available to you as a resource. And then I use this as a training video. If you want to share this in Google Classroom on week 3 or week 4, then your students will understand how to use Epic as a learning or reading resource. I know that I'm speaking quickly. I'm so sorry. I know that I only have 10 minutes left and I still need to devote 5 minutes to Q&A. So I know my speed is quick. Clearing your cache. If you have troubleshooted every question that you possibly can with your students who are having difficulties getting into resources, one option is clear your cache. And you don't have to do that over the phone. You don't have to email them a 4-paragraph analysis of how to do that. You can simply just share this video with them and say, you know what? Can you try this and see if this fixes the situation? And that might be the only thing they need in order for their computer to function properly. I know that some of our music teachers share resources that are still using Adobe Flash. I don't know if it's November or December of this year or January. Flash, I believe, is only supposed to work for a couple more months, if I remember correctly. But if you are sharing resources with your students that require Adobe Flash Player and it's blocked, then this tutorial will escort your students through the process of unblocking Adobe Flash Player so they can use the resource that you shared with them. When I teach reliable online research with my 5th and 6th grade students, I use this presentation, and about 3/4 of the way into the presentation, I highlight Britannica Online Learning. I don't necessarily recommend that you share this video with all your classes. I'm not sharing it because it's one of my favorites. I just want teachers to know that Britannica is a good resource for research. And if you're not already using it in your classroom, if you're K6, K8, it may be something worth looking into. Not really K, I take that back. Anyway, our younger learners. I've definitely used it with 2nd grade. I've used it a little bit with 1st grade as long as I'm there coaching them. But if it's a resource that you haven't explored yet, feel free to explore what it does in that resource. For our older students, you're going to be using ProQuest. Our freshmen through seniors are going to be doing advanced research, and that's available to the students. I hope it's available at home. It's available to me as a teacher, but I don't know if my security protocol is different and I have access to it because I'm a teacher. Hopefully our students can access it at home. And then you'll notice how it has that question mark right there. I mentioned how some resources at home, you have to do a couple extra steps in order to get in. Now, if you're worried, how am I going to tell my students about the question mark? Don't worry, I have a video already. So if you're using a resource that has a question mark, you can pop this video into Google Classroom, share it with your students. That way they can figure out how to use those resources at home using that extra layer of security. The next video is Student Connect. You are going to, I'm sure, ask your students at some point to check Student Connect, or at least you'll ask those families to check it. If they've never used Student Connect before, this is a good intro tutorial that's going to help them get in. If you didn't know it already, parents can actually sign up in Parent Connect to get emails every single day. I can't remember if my Student Connect tutorial shows the students how to do that or not, but parents can receive direct emails to their email on file every single day with updates from their teachers. So that's available to you. This next one is mainly for teachers, but it has a secondary impact on students. If you have some PDFs that you think are fantastic and you don't want to disengage from them, and you want to share that content with your students, but you want them to be able to have an editable version on their end, this video is specifically for teachers, teaching you how to drop PDFs into a Google document so that the students have a space where they can edit that content and then provide you with feedback. In some situations, people will say, well, all you have to do is drop 27 text boxes in there and it's fantastic. Yes, that's one way to do it. This specific tutorial shows you a different way so that you're not putting any text boxes on that document at all. And then the children can then, or the students rather, can then respond to the questions, concepts, or ideas inside that Google document, and you have access to their answers. Benchmark Universe and Benchmark Library are also resources available on the iPad. And I believe our 1st through 5th grade students are using Benchmark. If you have families that need to open up their devices so that more students have access, more of their children have access to technology. Oh, go ahead. Or maybe not.
That might be someone with an open microphone.
Oh, okay. If parents or students are inquiring about those resources and how they work, a tutorial is available right there, step-by-step explaining the entire process. Not every resource that you're going to share with students is app ready. The developers have not designed an app for that yet, but students want it to function like an app. On very rare occasions, if that's something that's important to you, important to them, it could be a time saver. On an Apple device, you can add a resource to that home screen so that students can come back to those resources easily. Entire video teaching you how to do that is there. All right, one more specific video and then a quick overview, and then we're headed into the Q&A. Legends of Learning is available for, I believe, 2nd through 6th grade. In the chat, if you have more specific information, feel free to provide that to Delane. But the last time I checked, they were opening it all the way up to 2nd grade, and it's math and ELA. In my opinion, this would be a supplemental resource. It's not going to take place of the CUSD provided curriculum, but for any of your parents who reach out and say, that my child is done with all their work, I want my child to be challenged, what else do you have available? This is a game-oriented resource where children are playing games that where the content is standards-based in its focus, but it feels more like a game. They're working with angles, they're working with geometry, linear equations, odd and even numbers, all those standards are embedded in there. Just find the resources that work well for you and then share that content with your students. And this is the student tutorial that you'll find right there. Here's an overview, a snapshot of just a few of the videos. If you use Flipgrid or Freckle, if you use Prodigy or Edulastic, if you use ListenWise or ReadWorks, you're used to standing elbow to elbow teaching your students how to use those resources. I'm not the only one out there who's designing video content that teaches students how to use these things. Feel free to use and share anything that you see here. Or find other quality resources on there that teach students how to use those resources, because you can't do it elbow to elbow. I'll pause here for about 45 seconds. That way, if you need to pull out your camera because you didn't take a picture of this earlier, feel free to snap a picture if you want to access this presentation in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or tomorrow, because our live video will not be available until next week. Just another reminder that you must have CUSD in all capital letters, otherwise that URL will not work. We are on to the question and answer period of time, and then we will remind you again what our email addresses are. Delane said earlier, thank you so much for coming. We know that you took time out of your day to come here to this training session, and we are very thankful for the time that you spent to come. Delane, are there any questions that we need to answer?
Oh, we have just been knocking them down as they've been popping up. So people are loving your resources. I'm getting lots of private messages about how awesome this is. So thank you everyone for using that chat feature. A quick reminder, don't forget to change your name inside of Zoom to include your badge number if you are looking for credit for today's hour-long session. We would love to have you email us. Absolutely. Find us in Outlook. If you didn't capture that email address, I'm the only Delane. You might find 4 of me, but they're all me, I promise. I just happen to have a lot of email addresses in the system. So I'm happy to help in any way. We'll get you pointed to your friendly local neighborhood technology TOSA if you're not in the Clovis East area for me or in the Clovis North area for Melissa. And we're all here to support you. Thank you for being teachers and staff and administration, and we've got this, right?
I want to be respectful of your time. If you have other things to do and you need to sign out, please do so. If you need to hang around for 5 more minutes and ask some final questions, I want you to know that I am here to answer those questions. So if you are leaving, goodbye. Thank you again so much for joining us today. And if you're staying for a few minutes, I am going to stay here until all the questions are answered. So thanks for being awesome, Clovis Unified. Have a great day.
I do have a question for you guys.
Yep, go for it.
So I'm a first-year teacher. What do you guys say is the first thing I should do when setting up my Clever page?
Zoom.
What grade do you teach?
5th grade.
Did you say 5th or 6th?
5th grade.
5th grade. For you specifically, I don't know that your Clever teacher page necessarily needs to have anything right now. It's only a matter if you have bells and whistles and extras that you want your students to have access to, then go ahead and do that. At first, you're going to be busy with Google Classroom, and the students are going to use Google Drive in order to get there, so you don't need to add anything to your teacher page.
Okay.
If you want to add a reoccurring Zoom link to your Clever teacher page, that would be an option. Don't feel like you have to do that today or tomorrow. Sit elbow to elbow with another one of your colleagues on your campus, and where they have set up a Zoom session already, they can walk you through, escort you through step by step. And then maybe Zoom would be added to Clever. Some teachers add it to Google Classroom, so it's just a preference. Do you want raspberry vinaigrette or do you want ranch dressing on your salad? Either one of them work just fine. And then the students will have access to Benchmark. That is the adopted curriculum for our ELA program. They're going to be working with that. iReady is the CUSD adopted math program. They're going to have a button, an app specifically in Clever that's ready to go for them, so you don't necessarily need to add that to your teacher page. So I'll scoot this over here for teaching purposes. Google Drive is going to get them into Google Classroom. And then as we scoot down the page, iReady is going to be right here. That's going to take them into that resource. And because I'm a teacher on special assignment, I don't have benchmark on my screen, but you and your students will have benchmark on your screens. If you choose to use Freckle as a supplementary math resource, then that's available right here. If you're going to use Prodigy as a supplementary math resource, that's going to be here. If you're going to use code.org for computer science as a supplementary tool, then you're more than welcome to just have the kids click on the heart right here to favorite it so that it can pop up to the top. I can't think that there's anything that's like mandatory. Ooh, my school year is going to crash and burn if I don't have something in my teacher page. For 5th grade, not so much. I mean, if you have this wow, awesome resource that's not already in Clever, and you're like, oh, I really want my kids to have access to this, well, go ahead and drop that in there. But for 5th grade, I can't think of anything that's essential, mandated, or necessary.
And then when I know for Google Classroom, I can on the first day post the little code for them to all log on and get access to my Google Classroom. When I get students assigned, and then when I go into Clever, will I automatically be able to see the analytics of how long they're on Clever, their iReady scores, their benchmark scores, or is that something I need to select and find my students?
In order for benchmark specific data, again, forgive me, I don't have any rostered students for benchmark. It would appear here in the textbook resources if I had it. You're going to go directly into benchmark in order to get that specific data. I can pull up data, but I would compromise student security right now. And so I can't pull that up in this session. But you as a teacher would click directly on that in order to get in. For Clever, not every app is going to work perfectly for teachers because this is mostly a device that we're using to focus on student learning. And so we want to make sure that all of these work for kids, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for teachers. Sometimes teachers are going to have to come up to a new tab and then enter a resource from a different location. Now, what do I mean by that? For teachers, when we click on Google Drive, we're going to get an error message, or we did last year, because it wants to take us to the student space. Mm-hmm. So you can't click on Drive as a teacher. You actually have to go to drive.google.com. Drive.google.com is where you are going to access Google Drive. And then that's where you're going to find all your Google related resources. And if you, the teacher, want to get into Classroom, you're going to go to classroom.google.com.
Thank you for that, Melissa. I was trying to help somebody troubleshoot, and it's been a while, so I forgot that the Drive link was for our specific student domain. So if you're still listening, hopefully this got our troubleshooting going, that you'll have to be specific to get to drive.google.com as a teacher, or classroom.google.com. And then we do have Sarah that would like to ask a question out loud.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. First day of school, when I have 8th grade teacher, Rayburn Intermediate, by the way. I think one of the first things I want to see all my kids first day of school, EP1, period 1. How am I going to communicate to my kids before the first day of school to get to this Zoom link? Am I having to send a letter home and an email? Is that the only way? Because they won't have a Google Classroom.
Yeah, excellent question. So one of my top videos right here is the first week of distance learning. And I highlight in 11 minutes sort of those expectations that we could have as teachers. I am not a district level decision maker, and I am not a site administrator. So next week, when you head back to your campuses, your faculty, your administrators are going to let you know the timeline for the first few weeks of school. For the students, there is the potential that week 1 is resource distribution. We cannot expect students to get on day 1, the 17th, and then just plow away on learning things, because there is the potential that only 60 or 40 or 30% of them have access to resources. And 0 of them have the textbooks that they need to be successful. So I don't have the finalized timeline on when day 1 instruction will occur. So lean into your site administrator for that. But to answer your question, whenever day 1 of learning is, whether it's the 24th or whatever that day is, in order for the students to get into Google Classroom, they obviously need the code. So my thought process is it's going to be on your website potentially. Item number 2, it could go home to the parents and the students in mass email, and you could potentially have an introductory letter. I don't have it pulled up right now. My video is not in finalized form. One of my future videos is, what will that introductory letter look like? Maybe I can see if I can pull it up real quick.
While Melissa's looking, we have another question about when kids log into Clever. So they will be connected to their Google account. When a student clicks on that G Drive from Clever, it'll say, is this you? And it'll show their full email address. So they just have to confirm that this is who they say they are. And so there'll be an extra click, and then it will open up Drive for them. So there's always a verification process. I usually just tell the littles, click on the blue button.
So I don't have my video finalized yet, but in my brain, I'm thinking, how are we going to communicate with students for the very first time? In my brain, as I'm hypothesizing this, my thought process is have an introductory letter of some kind, sort of as a roadmap. If you've ever been to Paris, France before, you know where the Champs-Élysées is. But if you've never been to Paris, you're like, I have no idea. Think about your website. You're the one who designed it. You know where everything else is. For everyone else, it might as well be the underground tunnels of Paris. They don't know where these things are. So in my opinion, it might be helpful to give students grace and time to figure out where these things are. What's your Remind code so that they can get into Remind? Where is the help desk? When will the official first day of school be? What is your teacher email address? Maybe send them on a scavenger hunt. You know, take a picture of yourself in front of my website. Take a picture of yourself in front of Google Classroom, in front of these things that I shared with you, just as a fun way for me to see your face, and then share those pictures with me in Remind, for example. So it's either a PDF going out to your parents in Remind, where those links are activated and they can click on those. Okay, so click here, and then I'm going to click on that PDF and it will work. If you're savvy enough and you want to drop QR codes in here, just hold, like literally hold your cell phone up, click on camera, hold the camera up to the screen right now, and it's going to say, do you want me to open up that website? Your other way of getting parents to these resources is to design QR codes. You don't have to design a QR code. No one's going to give you brownie points. No one's going to give you a trophy because you're the teacher who has QR codes. If that's easy for you, then do that. If you're not sure how to do QR codes, go to my YouTube channel. I have a video for that. I can't ask for a thumbs up if that's helpful because I can only see one participant. Everybody else, it's their name.
Right.
Maybe you can drop thumbs
We
up in
do
the chat.
have another question for you. They'd like to come on microphone for Linda.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Hi, I am a special education teacher and my students are rostered into different classes. What I'm wondering is if they are with a different homeroom teacher and they're on their Clever have her as homeroom, is there a way for me to get a classroom link onto just their Clever page? Or if do I have to have sharing classroom, and will it go to all of her or his students?
I'm so glad you're still here because I have that question handwritten because I wasn't sure of the answer if RSP students are double rostered in Clever. Melissa, have you seen that?
I'm trying to remember where I have seen specific rostering. I don't have a quality answer to that question.
So I think we'll need to follow up and find out.
Hi there. Hi, Delaney and Melissa.
Yeah.
I happen to have a son who is RSP, and that was a question that came up last spring, and he was only enrolled in the general ed teachers class, not the special ed teachers class. You're welcome.
What a couple workarounds for this would be whether or not the classroom teacher wants to make that resource available in their Clever. However, if it's a material that the whole class doesn't want, you would have to utilize that strategy that Delane mentioned at the beginning, where the blue button was on the left-hand side specifying what students would have access to that. Your other option is either setting up a Google Classroom for all your special ed students or asking those homeroom teachers to share those resources. And in Google Classroom, you can have differentiated instruction and only share that out with specific students.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I wish they could be double rostered. I can see how that would be so much easier for our students. So I don't know, I might find out if our IT department is capable of doing that. I'm sure they've probably looked every year, but I like to believe that companies like Clever are constantly improving on their own product. And hey, maybe this is the year that we can actually assign kids to more than one teacher. So thumbs up, I'll ask them about that. We did have a question, Melissa, your fantastic letter that will be going out. Do you have any plans on publicly sharing that for people to beg, borrow, steal?
Oh, excellent question. Let me do this real quick. I'll bring up my website and then show you where you should be able to have access to that. My plan was to try to get that out in blog form today, but time did not permit. So when you head to melissaculver.com, you're going to land at my website that looks like this. And then right off the bat, I have 1, 2, 3 links. The very top one is my blog, which I didn't mention earlier. And in here, this is where I post anything that I think is awesome for teachers. So my highlight that's supposed to go out this week will probably include a link so that you can find that in Google Drive, and then you can download it and you can delete anything that you want and tailor make it so that you can add your magic and make it happen on your end. So yes, hopefully tomorrow. And you're not inconveniencing me at all if you email me and say, Melissa, it didn't show up on your blog yet. You can totally remind me. So yes. Not there yet, but hopefully we'll be there. Any other questions?
So far, I think the letter question was the last one, unless anybody else wants to pop up on camera. I still see that there are 20 of us here, so thank you for sticking around. I think you're muted, Sarah.
I don't know if you can answer this, but 38 kids, 40 kids. Is there a way to share a screen as a teacher and see all kids' faces?
There is a limit based on the driver card on your device. So for example, my laptop, I can only see 25 faces max because of the graphics card. So I think it would depend on the size of your screen and the graphics card for you to actually get all 40 faces on one Zoom screen. I asked that same question.
You can toggle back and forth between the screens. Unfortunately, you just can't see them all at the same time. So there's usually a button on the right or the left that lets you move to that adjacent screen to see that next batch of students.
But when you are screen sharing and you're presenting, the most I've ever been able to see is 5 at a time.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm not presenting and we all just have our cameras on, the most I can see is 25. But when I'm running a presentation, 5 at a time. And I just have to use those little arrows. I know, it's kind of a bummer.
The way that I'm presenting right now, let me pull up one more video. In this presentation experience, I am able to see your faces. I'll leave this here. I'll go to YouTube. I actually have a 2-screen setup. And so right here in the extra tools and distance learning, I tell you the resources that I use at home in order to enhance my own distance learning experience. And so for free, you can actually just use an HDMI cable and then plug into your television. That way you're not chin down close to your screen trying to see their microscopic faces, either in the classroom or in your home. Connect that HDMI cable, steal it from the Xbox for a little while, it's okay, and then plug it into your computer and then the television screen, and then you can see the presentation on one screen and then all their sweet faces on another screen. That would be the free version of doing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, and I put the chat over there too. You can do this with your projector. So if you are on campus, hook up your laptop to your projector, do that extended screen version, push the participants off to the projector, push the chat off to the projectors. So yeah, you'll have to look up a little bit, but I would present off my laptop and I'm monitoring what's happening live on the projector. So if that helps as well, if you're on site and you don't have a TV in your room.
Thank you.
That's absolutely another free version. And then another resource that I use, don't spend money. That's my recommendation if you can avoid it. Because I'm mobile and I move to 5 different sites, I have this portable screen that I'm able to take with me. It collapses and then I plug it into the side of my computer. So in this presentation, this is on this screen and then I scoot over and then on this other screen, that's where I see all your faces. So I'm able to do both at the same time.
Where did you get that screen?
On Amazon.com. And I think that in the See More, I have the links to all the resources that I highlight in here. So you can click on here and then you can buy that if you want to. And then a warning that I have in the video is that I'm not promising that anything that I'm suggesting on this video is going to work with your devices. So that goes on you. I'm just showing you what works with my devices. Some of your devices come with a stylus. So let me scoot over. This microphone is the microphone that I'm using right now so that you can hear me well. In my opinion, the built-in microphone on our computers is decent enough to get the job done. But I like when my sound quality is better. So that's the resource I've used to have a better microphone. I already have a stylus built into the side of my computer, so I don't need to buy one. Oh, here we go. This is what it looks like. On the side of my computer, I already have a stylus built in. I didn't need to buy one. Yes, Delane is holding hers up. If you have a CUSD...
Ask the tech department. It's missing. I promise you. They have pulled it out of your device and put in a tech support and say, I need it back.
Sure. If you don't have a computer that has a stylus, then I pop one up there. My finger on the screen does okay. I just feel like I'm more efficient at writing on the screen with a stylus. So that could be an option. Because I spend 10 hours a day on a computer, this is the style of mouse that I like for me, for my hand. If you love your mouse, don't go out and buy a new one. It's a roller ball and my thumb is what's doing the work. My wrist is not in pain at the end of the day. My thumb's doing the most of the work. So that's a resource that I use. If you need a tripod of some kind because you want to take videos of yourself, you don't have to. Your computer has a built-in camera. You can do videos of yourself from your computer. Don't buy it if you don't have to. And then I think that's the last resource that I highlight. So this is video number 1, Melissa Culver YouTube, and then you can find that extra tools and resources for distance learning. I'm going to cut the video off just to be respectful of your time. You guys are amazing and phenomenal. Thank you so much for spending time with us
Email
today.
us. Yeah, if with any questions.
Thank you, guys.
You are welcome. Have a great day, Clovis Unified. Bye-bye.
Bye.